We're doing better than Ryan Zimmerman, who limped off the field last night in the second inning. More bad injury news for him, for a guy who's already missed 53 games this season with the plantar fasciitis in his foot. What's the latest on him? Is this a season ender? What do you think we're looking at with Ryan here?
I'm glad you said plantar fasciitis because it gave me a roadmap of how to pronounce it myself.
Oh, I don't know if that's correct. I think that's right.
Well, we're just going to roll with it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he's going to undergo an MRI today. The fact that it's related to the injury that kept him out for 2 months is not encouraging at all. I'm not going to pull the trigger and say he's out for the season on this, but it would indicate that he would miss some more time. That said, we could show up today, and the MRI results were good, and he's back, and they're just going to have to ease him back into the lineup, maybe lower his workload a bit. But what really got me is that, yesterday he was jogging down the line. He thought he was out. He noticed that Josh Donaldson dove, so he started to speed up and sprint, and that's when his foot started feeling bad. So to me, it seems like that's just sort of a ticking time bomb. It was only a matter one of these days that it was going to flare up on him again. It doesn't seem a sustainable way to keep playing until this thing really gets resolved.
Yeah, it was probably just a matter of time. You're right. And depending on how long he's out, it makes me wonder if Mike's going to try and make we know that they need bullpen help at the deadline. Now it makes me wonder, all right, what do they do? Do they go out and get like a defensive first baseman? I mean, you can play Adams and Kendrick there and maybe Parra, but none of those guys are great defensive players. What do you think? Do you think that they're looking at multiple positions now in addition to bullpen help?
It's interesting because given how much this team wants bullpen help and is adamant about that and how close they are to the competitive balance tax threshold, they don't want to go over that. They don't have a lot of wiggle room. It seems like they're only going to make one, maximum 2 moves this deadline. That said, I thought for a while now they really could use a better utility infielder, sort of a stronger bench that's beyond Adrian Sanchez and Wilmer Defoe, or sort of this rotating cast of guys that they've brought through when injuries occur. And now that need could be even more magnified, as you mentioned, if Ryan Zimmerman does go to the IL for a bit. One intriguing possibility, and this is really just a very much up in the air, and there's no indication this could happen, is that Mark Reynolds was just DFA'd by the Colorado Rockies. So he's out there and available. He was pretty good for the Nats last season. He's power hitting first baseman, kind of can just provide a similar role to Zimmerman and platoon with Adams and mix in with Kendrick, and really could be a piece until Ryan gets back, because he's a guy you can kind of just say, hey, come play for the next couple weeks, the next month, and then we'll DFA you again, and just sort of shoot him back into the open market. But that again, that's just sort of a rumor I'm now starting. There's no legs to it. It's just something I thought would possibly be interesting in filling that hole.
So overall, how do you evaluate the 4-game series with Atlanta? I mean, they do split, and we were talking about it. If you split with the best teams and then clean up with everybody else, you're in pretty good stead. But it seemed like, I think you wrote about this, there was an opportunity to maybe do a little more here.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's definitely going to be colored by the time on the calendar, and the fact that the Nats are chasing Atlanta is going to color how we think about this series. But you're right. I mean, the split against the first place team is nothing to turn your nose up to. And if you say, well, the Nationals are still 6.5 back after this weekend, that's not the problem. There is not the 2 games they lost in Atlanta this weekend. The problem there is the games they lost to the Giants in April, and the Marlins in April, and the Mets in May. I mean, those are the games that you say, well, you should be closer to the Braves now. The ones you lost earlier in the season. It's not really a matter of this split is really keeping them in a hole. A split's fine. A split is a pretty good result against a really good team, and it really shows that these clubs are extremely well matched. I mean, each team got a lopsided win. Each team got a close win. Each team could say, their bullpen screwed up or they didn't hit well enough against certain guys. I don't think the Nationals are unique in this situation of coming out of this saying, wow, we really blew it. We really missed an opportunity. I just do think, down the stretch when you came into the second half with 14 matches against these guys, you need to use those to make up ground. So you hope at the end of the season it's not 7-7, and right now it's 2-2. So the Nats will have to to use the next 10 matchups better and see if they can actually make a push for the division, because it's a lot more stable to do that than play with 7 teams for 2 wildcard spots.
I'd say taking the split in Atlanta, knowing that Max wasn't going to pitch, I mean, that's even better for you. I mean, hopefully he pitches in the Rocky series, but if you're going to tell me Max is not going to pitch in Atlanta and we're still going to get 2 wins, I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Joe Ross and Anibal Sanchez in the back half of that series. You probably could have said, and Anibal Sanchez against the Braves ace at bat, and you probably could have said, those are your 2 losses, and you're going to win the games that Corbin and Strasburg start. Of course, you sort of flip-flop those. You lose the Corbin game, you win the Sanchez game. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think the split's bad at all. I think it might look bad on the surface because there's so much tension and pressure on the Nats right now to chase the Braves and sort of get them when they can when they're in the same park. But, it really wasn't a bad weekend by any stretch. It just feels bad also because the ending was sour.
That being said, they had a 2-game lead in the wild card. Now it's a half. All right, so Mike's going to do something. This is what he does every year, especially in the bullpen. He's going to make some moves, and he's going to acquire a couple arms. Just a matter of who. Do you think? But then, with the starting rotation, do you think they're fine in the rotation? You think they're content there when you throw Fetty in there and Ross on a spot start, or do you think they're looking?
I would personally. I think they should look for starting depth. Yesterday, Mike Rizzo, speaking with reporters in Atlanta, expressed confidence in what they have right now. He said they have their big four, as he called it, and then a mix of Eric Fetty, Austin Both, and Joe Ross in the fifth spot. To him, and another, it is to those guys, especially considering that if a guy like Max's injury lingers, or Anibal goes out for a 10-day stretch, or Steven Strasburg, lapses and maybe goes to the injured list, then you're looking for those spot starters to shoulder an even heavier work. I think they can handle that at the level that you need them to make a push into this, because you are, as you mentioned, you're fending off about 6 teams, and you only have a half game. And if you want to make a push for the division, you're still 6.5 out. You have a lot of ground to make up there. I don't know if the rotation talked about them is quite strong enough. 1 through 4 is great. 5 is a question mark. And I think if you can address it in these next 9 days, I think you should.
Mm-hmm.
Joined by Jesse Dougherty, Nationals beat reporter for the Washington Post. It was a few weeks ago that Scott Boras was seen talking with the Patriarch Lerner, with Ted Lerner, about the Rendon negotiations. Any follow-up on that? Any momentum, or is it pretty much dead in the water at this point as far as progress in those negotiations?
Yeah, not a ton of momentum right now, and even immediately after that meeting, Scott Boras had downplayed it to Barry Saluga from the Post, saying that it was more of just a check-in with his guys. He has so many clients on the Nationals that if he's in the area, he's gonna stop in. A Rendon deal was discussed for sure, and I think that conversation is on the table still. I just think the Nationals right now are pretty narrowly focused on the trade deadline. I even think Scott would understand that if these next 9 days he doesn't get a phone call or text from Mike Rizzo, he still would probably know that the Nationals want Anthony Rendon back beyond this season. He knows it's the hard stop deadline on July 31st this year. But another element of that is that when we thought he may be. For August 1st, it's solidified that no team but the Nationals will be able to negotiate with him, from now until the end of the World Series. And that sort of starts another timer on their exclusive period to see if they can get an extension done with him. And then we'll see sort of from there, because they'll obviously be making, they'll be scouring the market to see if there's any veteran ads. They'll be managing their minor league system. But once the trade deadline passes, their responsibilities really diminish, and they can really focus on Rendon and see if they can get that squared away.
Do you feel pretty confident that Max will pitch in the Rocky series?
I do. I would like to sort of answer that question once he throws his bullpen today. He's going to throw an extended session, and if he comes feeling good out of that, it will put him on his normal schedule. He typically throws a bullpen 3 days before each start. That would put him Thursday against the Rockies. I would think strategically it could make sense to push him one more day. That way you could line him up to pitch the opener against the Dodgers, the NL's best team, and then the series finale against the Braves next week on the trade deadline on July 31st. That way you sort of maximize your best pitcher against your best competition rather than throwing him against the Rockies. But, at the same time, if he wants to just stay on schedule and come back as soon as possible, we could see him Thursday. Dave Martinez said yesterday he's hopeful that will be the case.
So you mentioned the Rockies coming in today for 4. They've lost. They did win yesterday to salvage a game in the Yankee series. They won 8-4, but they finished the first half 0 for 6, and then they've lost 3 of 10. To start the second half. So not playing well. Yeah, they got some bats, but their starting pitching is bad. I mean, real bad. So you got to feel pretty good about this series, considering they're going to face 2 pitchers whose ERAs, I believe, are north of 6.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you need to sort of, like tonight, for example, with Eric Fetty on the mound, is a game that I would say is a bit more of a toss-up, because the Rockies do have a good offense, and they can explode on you if a pitcher doesn't keep it down, and he's shown a bit of command issues this year. He hasn't been consistent. After that, if you can line up Patrick Corbin, Steven Strasburg, Anibal Sanchez, or Max Scherzer, some combination of those 4 guys in the final 3 games, you like your chances. And you also like your chances of And I think that's all. You don't want to stack one series on top of another necessarily when the Nationals need as many wins as they can get. But at the same time, looking at it from a sort of broad week view, it could be a pretty good situation for them to try and get 6 or 7 out of their starters in the last 3 games of this, and then going into a tough series against the Dodgers was a really well-listed team. I mean, this could be that could be a good stretch. And then I think, as you mentioned, the matchup with the Rockies, the way they're playing, is probably good for anybody right now, and that's a big advantage.